Hello and welcome along to Even Flamingos Lose Their Pink. I am doing something new this week, so you can see me. Well, you can't see me, but I'm filming it, so I'm gonna hello to YouTube people if you're watching. So we'll see. It's every week's a learning week, isn't it? So firstly, how are you? How are things? We've had a pretty good week. What have we done? Oh, Bruce went to the Arnolds, that was good. Yeah, I mean, my chinchilla died randomly, so Splinter is no more, which is very sad. And Magnus has been a bit poorly again, but you know, that's kids' nurseries are germy. Other than that, there's not much else been going on. So, how are you guys? Pink wise, how am I feeling? I'm not sure actually. Shall we do a check in with the pink as to how pink we are? So when I look at the scale, I need to make this into a flamingo. My friend suggested doing some, so we'll get some arty to do that. I think I am. I'm feeling a fiery rose. I am going to get an actual pink scale for this and do it so I'm feeling fiery rose, which is out of the 1 to 16. If you're new here, it's a scale of 1 to 16, not the typical 1 to 10, because why would we do that? So that's for a 12. 13. Oh, unlucky for some. Yep, so I'm feeling fiery rose, so that's that. So this week's topic is going to be about neurodiversity, because it is it's a celebration of neurodiversity week this week, so I'll go into that in a bit. But firstly, before we do, we're on our fact of the week. I'm very quickly running out of flamingo facts, not gonna lie. I've turned my lights pink as well in here, so I don't know if you can actually see there. So my lights are pink in here too. So flamingos can fly 10 to 15,000 feet. I didn't know that actually, but it's because of the way their bodies are extremely light, but the bodies are extremely non-dense, less dense, non-dense. What does it say? Their body density isn't very high, so it allows them to fly higher compared to the size of the flamingo. So that is your fact of the week. So this week our topic is Neurodiversity Week. So it's currently, this week is the celebration of neurodiversity. So in 2018, the founder of this this idea, Sienna Castellina. Sorry, I'm not the excuse, but I'm very bad with seeing. We'll get onto that in a sec. So in 2018, this woman started the celebration of neurodiversity after growing up and having conditions herself. She wanted to break down the barriers and get people engaged and do education. So since 2018, this has happened every week. So schools and organisations are invited to it, universities are invited to be part of it. They have week-long learning forums, things to get involved in, speakers, and it's all online, it's all accessible. So if you were to type in neurodiversityweek.com, it takes the page and you can get the resources from there. So the idea of their mission statement is to be more inclusive, to make sure that people are included in it, and to break down those barriers about what it is, how it shows up, how it manifests. So the reason I want to visit this topic today is because I have dyslexia, and there's a large chance that I have ADHD, but it's undiagnosed. We are waiting for the referral for that, but when you do self-referral, I hit like way down the end of the scale for the ADHD trait. And when you actually look at the research, up to 50% of people with dyslexia have ADHD, and sort of vice versa, because dyslexia isn't just like about reading, it's not about being unable to read, it's your processing of your brain and how your brain does or doesn't process things. So when I was sort of trying to find a definition for here, so that I can be, because I know what it is for me, But what they say is sort of neurodiversity. When you meet someone with dyslexia, you've just met one person with dyslexia. Same with autism, same with ADHD, same with sort of any of those conditions that to do with non-neurotypical conditions. So you've got your neurotypical, which is the brains that are wired the neurotypical way, and then you've got your neurodiverse wiring of brains, which covers a broad range of conditions, all have different traits, have different things, and neurotypical people do have traits of neurodiverse conditions. So the things that I do, it's one of the reasons why I didn't really ever know I had dyslexia till later on in life, and it's one of the reasons why if I've got ADHD, I didn't think it was anything. I didn't realise it because I just thought everyone did those things all of the time. It turns out not everybody does everything all of the time, so it potentially is. So if we start with dyslexia, so dyslexia is a brain-based learning disorder that affects the ability to read. So it does affect read, but it's not just about reading, it's about the processing too. Mine is anyway. So it's like, so I read this. I was reading it, so I'm going to read it out loud, and so this is what happened. So I read, dyslexic individuals often experience struggles with the components that make up reading, like phonemic awareness or phonological processing. And that means they can't easily recognise and break down the sounds of letters and words. And I was like, literally just done that in those two words, explaining that thing there. So if I see a word, if I know it and I can see it, but the physical makeup of the word, I struggle to be able to say. So there are certain words that hospital was one of them, is one of them, and it's so fortunate because I work there. There's an enemy. Nemo lives in them. An enemy. And there's a few other words that I say very differently to other people, and it's not until I say them and I get and I have to explain what the word is, and they go, oh, this, and I'm like, but it's because I've seen it written down. So an example of that was when I had Liz on as a guest. I thought what she did was fascias, because I saw the word fascias in a LinkedIn bio, but it was facades. I read it as that. So when I'm reading, I see different versions of what's there. So for dyslexia, for me, my left and rights are shocking. My short-term memory is not fantastic. Have to kind of go over and remember things. So when I was younger, I suppose the best way to sort of say how this, because what we'll do is we'll talk about how it affected my pink growing up, and how actually getting a diagnosis of dyslexia made me feel pink again. So when I was younger, I'm able to talk. I could talk a wall to sleep if I needed to. One of the things that my mum always says was when I was growing up, she could have a proper conversation with me and reason with me when I was about 2 or 3, and all the way through school I could talk my way through things. I remember times being given comprehension reading things. I'd just go to the question because I couldn't read it. I couldn't take it in to read it. I couldn't sit there for long enough to read the paragraph. I would go to the question, find the answer and write it down. So I found ways early on how to cope with the thing, but I thought that's how everybody did it. Often get told that I talk too fast, which is a processing thing as well, apparently, and that's linked to ADHD, but we'll get onto that. The inability to stay focused, as you will see as we go around, there's that too. So And like when it came to school and when it came to learning, because I wasn't thick, and I'm using air quotes for people that are listening, because I wasn't like typical, like I could read and I could write. So, you know, back in the 90s when I went to school, you dyslexics couldn't, you know, you were in the bottom set and you did this and you did that. I was in top set for a lot of things. My course, like, get to high school, I remember, oh my god, I remember giving The Hobbit in year 6, and everybody was raving about The Hobbit. What? Nope. There was, firstly, that J.R. Tolkien bloke doesn't actually write in any version of normal English. So that's that one. So I struggled to read bog standard English, so I couldn't read his type of English. Then there's about 9 million characters in it, and I could not follow. It took me so long to read a chapter. So then what you'd have to do was have a book report, and I'd always say I forgot or lost it, and I vowed that I would never, ever, ever read anything or watch anything to do with elves, magic, goblins, hobbits, anything like that ever again. So when the Harry Potter turned up, I was so against it, because I was like, I'm not getting involved. Don't be dragging me into this shit again. I'm not getting involved in this. I mean, it turns out that was actually all right, and it was relatively easy to follow, and I quite like that. And, you know, Lord of the Rings, when you watch the film, it makes sense because it's people, but Lord above reading it on a book when you were in year 6 was, it was hard work. So there was that, and I found coping mechanisms. So like I say, I could read and I could do things. And then when I got to high school, what was quite apparent in the end was tests. I could revise and revise and revise and revise, and I would just get worse and worse and worse marks. Coursework, fantastic at, because you had a long time to do that. I mean, I wouldn't do it when I was due to do it. I would do it a day before it was due in, or the morning it was going in, because my school started at 9:30, so I had at least an hour from waking up to going in and handing it in, and I could do it. And time management is also a problem with dyslexia and ADHD. Time blindness, that's a thing too. So very much have that. Now I actually wear a watch. Great. It's yeah. So all the way through high school, I would get told by my teachers that I didn't try hard enough. I wasn't revising enough. I didn't do this. I didn't do this. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. And it's sort of being told over and over and over again that you're not very good. You just go, but I'm trying. I'm really trying. I mean, it was so disheartening. You lose your confidence. So I mean, on top of that, I was bullied in school as well, to add to those things. So it was horrible. High school was horrible. It was the worst. I can't. I know everyone talked about it being great, but it was just, it wasn't fun. I just felt not included. I felt different, and I could never figure out why I felt different. And what I ended up doing for my GCSEs was I was shit at exams. So I chose subjects that I enjoyed that didn't have exams. So I did art, I did textiles, I did physics. I'll get onto that. I did physics and I did drama. I mean, you've got to do your basics of English, maths, and all of them ones you've got to do anyway. But my 4 subjects that I chose were those 4, because art and only had like 1 written exam in the whole, and it was like 5% of your mark. Drama was was only 20% of your mark, and you had to critique your own performance. I think it's blood. God, I was awful at drama. I can't act because I can't remember my lines. I can't remember what I meant to be doing. Stage left, and I'd wander on from stage right. See, stage right. That's exactly. I can't do it. So I just would be singing and dance. I can't sing. I can't dance because I don't know my left and right. So as everyone's running left, I'm smashing into everyone right because I'm going the opposite way. Doing it again there. So yeah, I've done it again. So that was what that was like. So I got to scrape through my GCSEs just barely. Coursework was a blessing. Then college, so I did again. I did photography, fine art, physics and maths. Now, physics and maths I liked because it was a set of equations, and I learned that if I had different colours on different bits of paper, if I could sift out the bits I didn't need to know, I could, I was fine. I had my way of doing it. I had my own way of sorting my learning out. I didn't do very well at maths and physics. I did really well at art and photography. I didn't do so well in maths and physics. But luckily, though, you don't need that for nursing as much. I mean, you do need maths for your what they call it, for your drug calculations. You do need maths, but it's one formula, and we had a tongue depressor with things on it to give you your formulas on them too. Everyone had a tongue depressor because we didn't have phones with apps on. I remember someone in my university coming in with the very first iPod, and we were like, wow, that's got songs on. Yeah, so I was in my second year of my nursing when I got called in by a lecturer. And I'm like, what have I done now? And he was like, yeah, I think you've got dyslexia. I was like, I think I've got what? And I was like, yeah, I think I've got dyslexia. I was like, nah, I'm just this first. She was like, no, I think you have dyslexia. We need to get you tested. I was like, nah, all right, I'll buy it. We'll go. So I had my assessment. I did my thing. And for anyone that's never had it, or for anyone that has had it, I feel like you're doing it all wrong. So they gave you, like, if I remember, it was a long time ago, and they gave me like puzzles to do. So it'd be like you build like a cube. They lay the blocks flat, and they're like, right, build this cube, build this pyramid, build this sphere with these blocks. And I'm like, beep, 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 beep. Done it. And then it'd be like, read these words out. So they'd put the word out, and then they'd like blank the middle syllable out of it, and it's like, say the word now with that gone. And I'm like, I mean, I couldn't say it with it in, so I don't know what we're to do now. And they'd like do things like that, and they look at different motor functions, different functions in your brain processing, basically. And the test results came back that I was quite severely dyslexic, and they were extremely shocked that I'd got to where I'd got to without any support and any help. So once I got that, and they explained things to me about like left and right, and they explained about my being able to sort of retain the information and write an assignment. So one of the things in nursing was you have to write an assignment you have to write 3 assignments every term to pass, and you got a 4. God, I've not wrote an assignment. I've never wrote an assignment. So I was writing my assignments as I talk. Not hard to do that in university. You've got to write it in a certain speak. So I was failing. I was doing like fantastically in my practice, but when it came to my writing, the theory side of it, I nearly didn't pass the first year because of how bad it was, because I'd just scraping 40s. I was like, and I'd every term I'd have something to resit. And then we found this out like going into my second year. So they've started giving me, I got able to access support and help. So like punctuations. So I would write like a full sentence, and my full sentence would be a paragraph. There'd be no commas, because that's how I talk, because I go blah, 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 and it all just comes falling out. So I'd write exactly the way I'd talk, with no spaces and no breath. So I used to get help. I'd write my assignment, I'd go and see the person, the academic tutor support would talk through it. They couldn't tell me what to write in my assignments, but they helped me formulate my thoughts into like a mind map. I'd never seen a mind map before, and for those people who don't know what a mind map is, it's just a brain dump. You put your subject in the middle, and then you just dump all your thoughts about that one subject, and like you'd write, say for instance, what can we do? Think of a topic, Grace, think of a topic. Dogs in the middle. And then you'd write, okay, so the first line up was like, I've got a pet. What type of pet? Is it a dog? Right, okay. But what colour is he? And then you're like, that's mine. And then the next line would be, I know people with dogs. Right, okay, do they have dogs? So, and then traits of dogs, and then you sort of like formulate this thing, and then that's how I was able to get my structure, by using mind maps, and people call them brain dumps, and there's like mind clouds, but they're all basically the same thing. Your main topic is in the middle, you have arms off for your ideas, and then you formulate that, and then that forms into, I didn't know anything about them. So I started getting this support, and it was explained to me that these things about your brain that you've been trying to fix are never going to be fixed. That's how your brain works. Let's work with your brain. Let's work around it so it's not more of a barrier. And then so once I got the diagnosis of being dyslexic, so many things made so much sense. And I went through this period of like, well, I was really quite angry, because I was like, had I have known, I could have got better at GCSEs, because back in the day, we had to have them personal record of achievements, those red folders that everyone had personal record of achievements, and everything was kept in them. I mean, Bruce has still got his, and there's lots in his, but I mean, mine might be mum's attic somewhere, but you used to have to get told that's what you took to your interviews, that's what people looked at if it wasn't your personal record of, and so all my exam results were in there, and I was so ashamed of them, because I'd worked so hard. I'd worked so hard and not got very much from it, and it was really like damaging to my confidence, really. It just felt like I just was rubbish. It just felt a bit like a failure. So when I got my diagnosis and I got told these things, that actually you can't control these, this is you, this is your brain, this is how it works or doesn't, and this is how it can work if we do it this way. I got angry. I went through the grief cycle of sort of that anger. It was like, I forget the stages of it, but it's a bit like denial, anger, accept, bargaining, accept, accept. So I was angry for a bit. I was really annoyed that I got told I was lazy. I got told that I didn't try hard enough. Angry at the teachers for not seeing it, and because they were the ones telling me that I was lazy, were not recognising it. But then I masked it. I did everything I could to mask it, because I didn't want to be the one. Didn't want to be told that I was those things. So yeah, once I got that diagnosis and I got that support, my mark started going from 40 to 60, 70s. They weren't telling me what to write in it, but they were helping me formulate my brain into a cohesive argument, basically. And then what I started doing was I started embracing my little quirks to do with my dyslexia, so my left and rights. When we're going somewhere, when I'm ever in a car with someone, the first thing if they want me to co-pilot, I double check that the sat nav's not working after they really want me to co-pilot. And then the next thing I do is we preface it by saying, if I'm saying go left, but my finger and my hand is pointing right, ignore the verbal command and go with the physical movement, because that's where I'm telling you to go. My brain hasn't processed the direction. The brain hasn't processed the voicing of the direction, but I can physically point you there more than I can tell you. So that stopped a lot of people getting lost when I'm co-piloting, but you've got maps now, haven't you? Google will tell you where to go. So there's that. And then it's just a little thing. So I'm not very good at proofreading. I'm awful at proofreading. So I always say that when I'll send my work to people to get it proofread with a this is how I've done it. This is what I'm saying. Red pen life out of it. Give me some suggestions. If it doesn't make sense, tell me. Because what I tend to do is I write sections but miss bits out, because I've already thought that I've said it, so I can go from like start to end, and sometimes the middle's not in there. So yeah, I'm always happy to kind of go, please tell me where I'm not gone. And it takes a bit to be able to go. It's hard to admit sometimes that you've got dyslexia, because I get, and it's not the same, but it's similar. Like if I have anxiety, and people that actually have neurodiverse conditions are more likely to suffer with mental health problems such as depression and anxiety, because society, mainly the evidence suggests it's because the way the brain is made up and it's wired, because depression is a lack in dopamine, and it's in the medication that gives you it, wires it back into it and gives you it. So if your brain is already incorrectly wired, and it's not incorrectly wired, but if your brain is wired differently to neurotypical people, you've been more susceptible to get mental health problems than you would be if you're neurotypical, because you've got the extra level of life is difficult because we live in a neurotypical world. So spicy people find neurotypical things frustrating, because you see these people doing stuff and you're like, how have you done that first time? How have you managed to put your keys down and remember where you've put them every single time that you do it? So yeah, I've managed my dyslexia for a while, all my life, until I got the diagnosis. And then what it transpires now is that Bruce mainly pointed it out to me, think I've got ADHD. And like I said earlier on, I think it's 50% of people who have dyslexia have ADHD as well. So what's interesting about that is that my things I thought were things that everybody does all of the time, because like I said, that's the thing about ADHD, but there are a lot of people at the minute going, there's more of it now than a modern R&D, it's like a made up condition, I do this and I do that, and you're like, yeah, everyone does bits of it, and that's people, innit? But it's when you do it all the time and it impacts your life that you kind of might want to go, and the other thing is, I did see a meme and it made me chuckle. It was about that if you've got a group of friends and they're all neurodiverse and you're the only neurotypical, it suggests that you're just not diagnosed yet. Because again, some of the research, and it's anecdotal research, is that neurodiverse people tend to sort of like find each other. We find the collection of people because you go, something in your brain, pattern recognition is one of them for its sort of dyslexia and ADHD. You recognise the patterns that are going to follow because your short-term memory isn't fantastic, but so you have to learn how to pattern recognition. So that's it. You recognise something in somebody else and you're like, I think you're one of me. And then you sort of bond that way. So for me, some of the stuff that so the best way to describe my brain is that there are layers and layers of conversation in there with a song playing in the background. And what happens is you get like, I get one train of thought. So I could be, oh, I've had a drink today. So I've got that. In the background of that internal monologue, there's a song playing, a tune playing that I can't pick up, but it's there in the background. Then there's did I turn my straighteners off? And on top of that, so there's like 4 or 5 different layers of thing in my head all of the time. And then so I got told that was anxiety. When I explained that to like the mental health professionals when I was poorly, I got told that's anxiety. You worrying train of thought, this racing train of thought. And I was like, yeah, I do have a racing train of thought, but what I didn't know was the 5 levels of racing train of thought isn't your standard level of anxiety. It could be because of ADHD. And then there's things where like I get really overwhelmed, and everyone gets overwhelmed, but I get really overwhelmed and I burn out. I do so much. Not now. I don't do so much now. I do actually, because today so Bruce is off. So today we were scooted to school, and I went through, I've got nothing. He was like, are you burning out? I was like, I think I'm burning out. I want to do stuff, but my physical body doesn't want me to do it. My head is going everywhere, but I just haven't got it in me to go at the minute. And I'm desperately like needing sugar and rubbish food and to try and get that bit of a kick. And so I guess what I used to do, the only time I don't have the racing train of thoughts, really, there are 2 times. When I've got music on headphones. So if it's in the background, like it's in the house, then it doesn't count. If it's on headphones, it's directly in my ears. I can focus then because I distract the noises outside. And then the other time is in the gym, but in the gym I've usually got my headphones in. So sports was my way of calming all of that, really. So another thing I do all the time, and again, people do this, but it's all, I forget appointments. So I either have the attention span of a gnat and I'm distracted by everything and I'm picking up on stuff and I'm procrastinating, or I'm focused, and I'm so focused that I'm not eating and I'm not drinking, and sometimes I'm not sleeping because I'm so focused on that. It's not so much now, but when I did my old job, I very much would go through a day because I was so focused on what I was doing and I was so in like the focus of stuff, I just wouldn't eat or drink. And the only time I had quiet was in the gym with music on, and then I'd come home and I'd just sit there with nothing on, physically wearing stuff, but no noise on, and just sit and not talk, and then the hottest shower imaginable so it burns my skin, bed, and repeat that. And part of that is the work I did, and part of that is the brain function that I've got, because as I'm reading a bit about sort of ADHD, and I'm reading this book, I'm audio listening to this book at the minute about it's called How to ADHD, and I said young, I don't actually know, but she was young when she was diagnosed, and how she talks about how it's affected her life, because attention deficit disorder is potentially the wrong title for it. I've got lots of attention, I'm unable to focus it where I need to focus it, so I zone out when I am listening to people, and it's not because they're boring, I can't, I'm like, stare, look like you're looking at something, look like you're listening. There are times I'm like, I can literally like be blank and I'm really, really paying attention to and I have to kind of remember, and I'm trying to remember I'm trying to concentrate on what they're saying, but I've missed the next bit, so I'm not present because I'm listening to them. And then there's the inability to sit still. So when I am the good thing is this desk I've got in my office is a stand-up sit-down desk, a rising desk, a moving up, moving down desk. So and when I was pregnant, I had a bouncy ball in it, so I was like physically, and what you often find me is me like twisting around, and I love twisty chairs because I'm often twisting on chairs and I'm moving. Some of the old meetings I used to go to when I was clinical, some of them could be an hour and a half, and that's challenging at the best of times, sitting down for an hour and a half. I knew I couldn't do it. I knew I couldn't focus for that long. I just couldn't, and I would just be lost. So I used to ask my wards to bleep me, just so I could get up and walk out and come back. It wasn't for any real reason, but I used to get the people that work sort of on my areas to bleep me. I'd be like, oh, give me a second, I'm just going. I'd get up, I'd walk out, I'd get on the phone, I'd have like 5 minutes, ask things going, you alright? Okay, just check it. I will actually check in with you while you're here. And I'd walk round while I was doing that because they're like mobile phones. And I'd go back and then I'd sit down for the next 20 minutes listening because I'd done that. And when I've been speaking to people after sort of this, that was my way of self-regulating, because I knew I couldn't do it. I can't, like, sitting down for tasks. I wrote a whole dissertation in a week. My master's dissertation I wrote in a week. I had a whole year to do it, but I procrastinated so much. And I can do it. I can sit for 20 minutes and focus. But I have to have about half an hour. When I'm that focused, I have to have about half an hour to an hour before I can sit back down again and do it. But I was doing things to self-regulate. Really, not before that. Before I even knew really what self-regulating was. Like, I'd put my headphones on. One of my offices was an open plan. It was next to an open plan office, and I'd be like typing away, doing my work, and I'd hear something. I'm like, bing, gone, out, because it was like It was the nature of my old jobs probably were very suited and not to an ADHD brain. My new job is not suited. My brain isn't suited to do things the way they get done, and I've had to really concentrate and change the way in which I do things, because it's whole new. And the reason it's what I've found as well is that my pink has been affected, because you can't concentrate on something long enough. And I've had my coping mechanisms prior to meeting Bruce and the boys and having the baby, because I'd learned how to do things. But since having more people to think about, it's been harder for me to organise my thoughts, because I have all of my thoughts about me and stuff about them and the house and then work and then that's part anxiety. But I can't pull them out. I'm unable to pull them out, and I want to be better at focusing. So if you're watching me, you can see my office. So this clacks. Is it clacks? All of this stuff behind me are all my hobbies that I hyper focus on, learn loads about, do a bit of it, go, yeah, I know that. Next. And the same with when I was younger, when I used to read a lot. I'd read fact books more than I'd read fiction books, because I didn't really like fiction books. I don't really like fiction books now. I like facts. I like knowing what's happening, and I like facts and factual books. And that's again, it's a personal trait, but it is things that link into ADHD as well. I am able to sit still, like I'm doing this here for now. For two things. I've got this fidget ball thing here. I use my hands a lot, and it's something that I want to talk about, so I can hyper focus on this and I can talk about that there. And the reason, someone asked me the other day, why am I going? I don't want the medication. I want to see if I've got it, because if I do have ADHD, it would explain a lot of things, and things I've tried changing about my brain over the years. If it turns out I've got ADHD, I'm not gonna fix it. And I've been fighting with my brain, because I don't feel normal, and I've been fighting with myself to fit in and to mask and to be like other people, and I've taken things on in order to fit in and be like other people, when it's not things I want to do. So I want to go and be referred, because I feel when I watch people and I see people, like I see Bruce just pick stuff up and put stuff down, I remember where it is. I see him go and do things and I just think I can do it, but it's so hard. I can do it, but it takes a lot of executive function to be able to do that, and it's so tiring. And I get so overwhelmed that I'm probably more grumpy than I need to be with the children. And I hate it, because I don't want to be that person. That's not what I want to do. So I want to have a diagnosis so I can stop fighting my brain and I can start working with my brain, and I can start becoming more pink because I know what I'm working with, instead of trying to change it. And because you do the same, I think what's the phrase? If you do the same thing over and over again and expect, the definition of madness is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. And I do the same things over and over again in hope that I remember how to do them, in hope that it sticks in my brain, but it doesn't. And I'm getting to a point where I wanna be better. I wanna be a better person, and I wanna be less chaotic, I think. And I think there's a lot to be celebrated for having ADHD, because my brain, if that's the case, even with the dyslexia, my brain doesn't function like other people's. And we can celebrate that too, because I might think a different way of doing something than somebody else. So in my new job in sort of transfer management, that's change management and transformation together. In my job I do now, and where I want to go, ultimately actually thinking about outside the box thinking, there's that corporate speak again, outside the box thinking and different ways of thinking and pulling that up can be really beneficial, because you're exploring other avenues, aren't you? And you've got a different thought process to it. But at the minute it just seems a bit scattergun. And even when I do these podcasts and I want to go one place, I end up going another place, and I end up going on a tangent until I come back round to it. And some people can follow it. Some people get really pissed off and just want me to get to the point. And it's really ironic, because when people are talking to me, if it's a lot, I almost have to ask them, is this going to be a long bit of information, or are you just going to get to the point and tell me? Because I can't process the long bit, and I want to. But it's so hard. And I felt so, I don't know, I just feel like at the minute with baby brain and fog too, it can be a bit of a hindrance, and I want it not to be a hindrance. I want to be able to manage it. So I had a coaching conversation, and we talked about how I've got a tendency to ask questions a lot. Always have done. It's one of the things my mum says I did again. I'd be like, why? I just want to know why. However, in asking why and in asking questions, it can irk the other person depending where they are. So I want to ask the question for more knowledge, not question them how they are, but I want to know the why. Go, oh, that sounds interesting, tell me more. But we've talked about actually how, because my time management is so bad, actually asking more and asking the why for the nice to know can throw my time management off, and I haven't got time for that. So I've done a couple of templates for myself for meetings that I'm going to be going into, and just general life things about how I'm going to be sort of organising my time management and life. So I've now got a column of, in my question part for meetings, I've got a nice to know, a need to know. So my nice to know is that, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more about that topic and that person and that personality and how you've got there and what that looks like. The nice to know is literally that, the nice to know. That would be nice if we could. If I had loads of time in the world to unpick that and listen to that tap drip, that'd be wonderful. But is my question going to add value to what I need to know, or am I going to end up being off topic? So I can write the questions down, because that's how I remember them, because otherwise they fall out of my head. And if I've got a question to ask, I'm constantly asking the question in my head till it's my turn, and I've missed whether or not the question's been answered, and I've missed whether or not it's relevant to what we're saying. And that's not just meetings, that's like life, that's everything. So I've started like writing notes down to go, oh, I need to ask this question, and then I wait along the way to see if my question's been answered. Sometimes it does get answered without me actually asking it, and I'm like, thanks for that. And sometimes it doesn't. So I'm finding ways to try and manage my thoughts personally so that professionally it works. And I think that having a label, a diagnosis is a label, isn't it? Can be really, it can be really beneficial because you know what you're working with. But you have to be mindful that if you meet one person with ADHD, you've met one person with ADHD. The same with autism, the same with sort of anything along them lines. That person and their personality are them, and that's their condition. There are similar traits through the diagnosis, but that person has traits of their own and how they manage and how they cope, and they have different triggers and they have different ways of managing and all of those things like that. So just because you meet one dyslexic person, one autistic person, you ain't met them all, because there's a spectrum. That's why there's a spectrum, because you can be like really dyslexic and you can be like dyslexic. If that makes sense. And I think that it's interesting because the book that I've been listening to, she talks about ADHD being a disability, and it is, because it's on one of those, it's on, you know, dyslexia is a disability too. And it's interesting hearing her talk about her experience, because I don't see myself as having a disability because I'm able to do things. And apparently that's ableism, and I need to look more into this myself again, because it's not something that I'm fully aware of. But because I'm able to function and able to do stuff, I don't see myself as having a disability. However, my everyday life can be really challenging because of having dyslexia versus somebody that doesn't have it. And I don't want it to be my personality. I don't want it to be an excuse. I want it to be there, and I want to be able to be accountable for it. So I don't blame something on being dyslexic. I don't blame that for, you know, if I've got ADHD, it's that I want to go, okay, right, that happened because that's that bit. How do we work so that doesn't happen again? And so I guess the one of the ways is talking about it. It's how, and exploring it, isn't it? I think, let me just double check. I think it was 1 in 5 people, or is it 1 in 7 people that have, there you go, 1 in 7 people in the UK are neurodivergent. 1 in 7. So if you're in an office, if you physically work in an office, there are a couple of people in the office that are neurodivergent, whether you know it or not, whether they know it or not. That's the thing. Yeah, and that was another thing, was when I spoke to my manager the other day about, like, I've told my parents and I've spoke to it, and I'm really kind of honest about, like, I don't know I've got it. I've done the self-assessment and it looks quite strongly, and I've got all these traits that go with it. And I mean, Bruce describes me as like living with, what am I? I think he called me a useless whirlwind, because I just sort of wander around moving stuff. And I go on to standby mode, and he can tell me when I'm hyper focusing, because he turns up and food appears and things. And then what did he say the other day? He said I'm like, he said it's assuming like living with a teenager, because of the mess that I can cause to the wardrobe. And I know everything's a mess, but I know where stuff is. And if I have to run around tidying things up, I don't know where I've put them. So he calls me, so I get called. It's like he said, it's like living with a teenager, but probably more, like, less hormonal, because I'm quite a more reasonable teenager, he called me. So yeah, so I think that it's really important that these things are celebrated and understood. And I think that the Neurodiversity Celebration Week is an amazing thing to have, because it puts that, you know, it's like all the international days that happen, it puts a spotlight on the thing that's happening, and then it creates a conversation, it creates a topic. So my podcast today is about this because of that. And then hopefully if you've listened to this, then you'll be thinking, oh, you know, I work in an office, 1 in 7 are neurodivergent. I wonder, is it me? You know, if things I've said that resonate with you, not saying you've got it, because like I say, everyone's got traits, but you know, when I was younger, girls didn't get ADHD because we weren't the ones bouncing off the walls, being the naughty child in school. We mask well, and I've had one person who's been diagnosed with ADHD suggest to me that I should get tested. In a really it was a really nice conversation, and I mentioned it to my manager the other day and said, by the way, there's potential for this. We all know I've got dyslexia, fine, but there's potential for this too. And his response was, how are you the only one that doesn't know? He said, welcome to the club. I'm not surprised. Welcome to the club. I'm not surprised. How is it you've only just figured this out? So it's a bit, when you kind of go, oh, is it that obvious? And it is, and it's not. I mean, the funny thing is, these things run in families, don't they? They're potentially genetic. My mum says she thinks she's got dyslexia, was never diagnosed. I have got dyslexia. When I went through the list, like the self-checklist about, and I'll put it on, I'll put a link to the self-checklist for it so you can see what I'm talking about there. When I showed them, my mum, she's like, oh, I do that. Is it an age thing? And I was like, yeah, but you've always done that, Mum. Something you've always done. It's not just because menopause, you've always been like that. And I think when you look through maybe the women in our family, the women in our family we're all from the same tree, shall we say. So there's probably something in that. So I think that these things do affect your pink. I think undiagnosed things in general affect your pink, because sometimes you think you're the problem, and you are. I mean, you are the problem. You're your own problem. Your brain is your own problem, and once you figure out how to work with your brain, the world is your oyster. And once you stop fighting what has to happen, because that's how it, you know, once you learn coping mechanisms and strategies and self-management and self-regulation, it becomes better. And I haven't managed that yet. And I if you have, give it a shout. Let me know how you've done it, because you know, anyone, I'm up for any type of learning. But I think it's really important. I think these celebrations and these spotlights are super important, and I think that it's wonderful that someone had this thought in 2018 and made it into something that it is. So by the time this goes out, we'll be halfway through the week, but there are still resources on there. Get linked in, get checked where they are, see what's going on, see what can help, how you can help your workplace, how you can help your home life. Because it's not just, and I keep talking about work because I think at home Bruce manages me very well. He's like, he helps me, and I want to be able to help him back. And I think that if you've got a loved one, or maybe not a loved one, maybe someone you know, there's that bit of like, just understand them, understand what helps them, because actually it might be something dead simple. It might be just something like, if we go for coffee and have a conversation, I'd rather go for a walk because I can't sit down and speak to you because there are too many noises and too many distractions. But if I'm out physically walking and we're having a quick 10 minutes, you've got me, I've got you, and we have that conversation, and I'm not distracted. Oh, bird, butterfly. Well, you might be, but there's less out there, and because you're walking, there is evidence to say that sort of walking, talking conversations actually work because you've got your fidget, you're moving out there. So that there's I guess that's my see, I can't remember that call to action week, whatever it is. That's the thing, isn't it? Check in, see where you are with the people around you. Are you neurospicy? Have you got any tips or tricks or techniques that help you regulate that you want to share with me that I can share with other people? That'd be great. That'd be really helpful. And I think it's always really interesting to see how these things play out when we become parents, partners, have our career, whatever that looks like, because these things do affect it, and I don't think they're talked about enough. I don't think we talk about it. I think it's because it's like a mental, because it's not a physical condition, it's an unseen condition that it gets put under the rug, and it's got a bit of a stigma around it more so. So thank you very much for listening. That's all. I mean, I could go on forever about this, but I'd probably rehash everything I've already said. So thank you very much, and I hope you are as pink as I am this week, and I hope you feel pinker still next week, and I will get some stuff out there actually to kind of give you pink scales so we can do a pink check-in. But yeah, thank you very much for listening. It's been much appreciated. If you could like and subscribe, that would be really helpful too. Any feedback about the podcast is wonderful as well, always welcome. If you've got any tips and tricks about how to manage your neurospecific, or if you've got any funny things that actually have happened to yourself along the way, that'd be great as well. I can start sharing them. So yeah, thank you very much. Much appreciated. I hope you have a wonderful week, and we shall see you next week. Tatty bye.